Hey everyone, and welcome to the third lecture on this series. As we learned in the past lecture, one critical step to implement the grant fund is to come up with a relative value of the contributions that a grant provides. The first thing is time, which is pretty much the main and most important contribution. To determine the value of each person's time, just consider their base salary based on the fair market value or the salary that you are willing to pay if you have cash. Then multiply that number by 2. 2 here is the risk factor, as the grant accepts the fact that he or she may never get paid if the company fails. And divide that number by 2000, which is 50 weeks multiplied by 40 hours per week. This counts for a few weeks of vacation. This number is referred to as grant hourly resource rate, or I will call it hourly rate for short. For example, if you're hiring a junior software developer and his base market value is 50k, his hourly rate is 50k multiplied by 2 divided by 2000, which is equal to $50 per hour. Or another example, imagine you team up with a senior salesperson. If her market value is 100k, the hourly rate would be $100. Just a simple note on this. Some people cannot afford to stay without salary. For example, they have family or mortgage or something else. In this case, they ask for a small salary. In this scenario, the hourly rate is calculated based on the money they put at risk. For example, if the market value is 100k, but the grant asks for 50k to make ends meet, to calculate the hourly rate, you should subtract 50k from 100k, as the grant just put 50k at risk. In this case, the hourly rate is $50. So, to put this in action, all the grants need to track their time. As much as it sounds boring, it's very critical to do so, as it brings discipline and helps you stay focused on the right thing. The second thing that someone can provide is beautiful cash, which is used as a working capital or to pay for services or materials for which no reimbursement is expected. As cash is super crucial for the startup, and without it, there is most likely no future, it's rewarded heavily by multiplying cash by 4. Just as a note, the cash that sits in the bank account is at no risk and should not be rewarded until it's used as a working capital or paying for services. The next thing is equipment. If the equipment is facilitating the business, for example pens, notebooks, or an old laptop, the grant shouldn't expect pie, as the value is so small and considering these things may cause a lot of damages. For example, if a grant shows up with a box of chocolate, that's nice, but he or she shouldn't expect pie. On the other hand, some equipment enable the business to operate. For instance, imagine your startup is an advanced pizza shop. If a grant provides an oven, that's critical and business enabling. So in this case, if it's bought specifically for the business, it should be treated as cash and rewarded by a factor of 4. If it's bought before joining the company during the last year, the value is equal to the price paid. And if it's more than 1 year, the value should be set to the resale price, which you can easily find on eBay. Next thing is ideas and intellectual properties. To consider ideas, they must exist before the inception of the business. It's the nature of a startup to come up with the new ideas as you work on the initial concept. These ideas shouldn't be counted. Also, the idea must be original and non-obvious. It also must be baked, which translates to a lot of time and effort. Just remember, ideas worth nothing, and the actual value will be created when you bring them to reality. In this case, there are 2 ways to consider the value. First is to calculate the theoretical value, which is time multiplied by hourly rate plus extra cost such as legal cost. For example, if I spend 600 hours on something and my hourly rate is $100 and I spent 10k to hire a lawyer and file the patent, the theoretical value is 70k. The other way to compensate for IPs is to set up ongoing royalty payment, for example, based on the percentage of the revenue you generated by the idea. This makes perfect sense, as you are rewarding something that brings sales and buzz for the company. Just make sure the royalty is not lifetime, as it will turn off the future investors. To avoid that, you can easily set up an expiry date for the royalty payment. Last thing is relationships. Similar to IPs, relationships are meaningless unless the grunt put a lot of effort and time to translate them to sales and partnership. To quantify this, you can consider the hourly rate multiplied by the time the sales guy spent on the relationships after joining the company, plus commissions or the percentage of a sale as an extra reward. For example, 5% commission in 20K sale can be translated to 1K if you pay the grunt in cash after the sale, or if the grunt is willing to receive Pi instead of cash, the value is 1K multiplied by 2 as a risk factor. Okay, that's it for this lecture. In the next video, I will solve some examples to make this crystal clear for you. Thanks a lot for giving me your time and watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe and see you soon.